Hi, I'm Jen Hurd, and welcome to the Thrive Through Life Change event, where we're going to show how to regain powerful personal energy, create an inspired vision, and a balanced life, in spite of everything going on in the world around us right now. I'm a professional organizer, and I have been for 30 years, and I decided to create an event that will help people figure out how to navigate change. I worked with a lot of clients one-on-one over the years, and some of them navigate change really well. They move through to the other side smoothly, and others not so much. And that's usually when I would enter into the picture. So I searched the world and I found experts on a global scale of life change. Things that they've been through and things that they've learned can really show that there's not any kind of life change that can't be overcome. So we want to show also on the other side how you can grow and thrive as you pass through. So without further ado, I'm going to welcome my guest today, Allison Denise. And Allison has a very interesting area of expertise in his relationship side of change. So she is our petite powerhouse. She's a dynamic, engaging speaker and coach and facilitator. And she really has discovered that if a lot less hurt to heal from when you develop self-love, and you can walk away from bad relationships faster and smoother, and you can focus on really reaching goals in other areas of your life, which is part of what we're going to talk about today. And really understanding that you can enjoy your own company, which I think is huge. She has a self-titled podcast. She hosts her own YouTube channel, so you got to check her out there. And she's 1/3 of the Bad Squad radio show, which I love the name. And she's also an author and a blogger. So she's really, really busy and talking about relationships. That's our focus today. So welcome, Allison Denise.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me.
Yeah, this is going to be a juicy topic. I always like to talk the relationship side. This is my wheelhouse. Love it. So your area of focus has really been on coaching people to leave bad relationships and how to recognize good ones that they want to keep. So let's unpack that a little bit. And we're talking about life change right now. So obviously there's people out there watching us who are in a position, especially with quarantine, right, where they're trying to determine, do I stay, do I go? What are some things that people can sort of think about and make those decisions?
That's a really good question. So when we're talking about relationships in general, I think one thing people fail to mention is that the same way you came in, you can always go out the same door. And usually a lot of things keep us inside that room of a relationship. It could be fear. It could be, I'm just comfortable here. It could be, I don't know what's out in the dating scene. At least I know the good and bad that I'm dealing with this person. It could be a multitude of things. And so when we're talking about whether you should stay or go, the very first question you want to ask is, do you already know the answer? If you find yourself looking up a Google, should I stay or should I leave? If you find yourself asking your friends, what should I do? If you find yourself going back and forth, chances are you already know that it's over. You're just now looking for someone to validate a reason for you to stay because it would just be easier. So that would be the first thing that I would look for. And I would say maybe another area could be, how did you feel? I've told people sometimes to do an exercise, find an old photo of themselves before they met this particular person.
That's good. Yeah.
And then look at a photo of themselves since. Mm-hmm. Look at your eyes, look at your weight, look at the energy behind your smile. If you see that there is a negative change between the two photos, then chances are you're not in the right relationship for you.
Yeah. I think with women, weight can be a real telltale sign. We eat our feelings a lot.
We do.
You know?
We really do.
And when you're gaining, unless it's something metabolic, of course, I mean, obviously that happens too as you get older, but if you're really eating your feelings and there's something telling there, you know, definitely. So when you're thinking about leaving, let's say you're leaning toward, okay, I need to go. I feel like it's time. Mm-hmm. How do you prepare for those kind of changes? Like, what can you do to prepare yourself before you actually take that step?
So I have found that specifically for women, we seem to break up. We go through the breakup feelings before we actually break up, which is why a lot of times men seem confused when we leave and they can't seem to get us back as quickly. They don't understand that We've already done the why is me. We've already done the crying. We've already done the ugly cry. We've already done all of that before we say, okay, I'm done. And so the first thing to prepare, I would think, is to accept it. Don't look for reasons why it should have worked. Don't look for reasons to determine, well, when he did this on the first date, I should have done that. That doesn't matter now. Now you want to accept that at this point in your life, regardless of whether this was a good relationship in the beginning or good for you in the beginning, regardless of all those things, at this point, you have to make a decision that it's time for it to end. And once you do, go ahead and allow yourself to feel the emotions behind that. It ultimately doesn't matter if the relationship was a good, bad, or toxic one for you. You were in it because you wanted to be in it, and now it's going to end, and you have to grieve that. You do get to grieve, even though you're the one who's walking away. So grieve the relationship first. Once you do that, I find that it allows you to clear your head. Once you go ahead and cry, deal with those emotions instead of trying to suppress them. Once you do that, now you can refocus on, okay, what are the things that I need to do next? If you happen to live with the person, are both names on the lease? Could you pay for the rent or the mortgage yourself?
Right.
Could you pay for the rent or mortgage yourself, but you would really just rather start somewhere new so that you don't have the old memories around you? Start making decisions like that. How are you going to split bills? How are you going to do those things? If you happen to be living alone, then you may want to determine if the person has a key. Do you want to ask for the key back? Or do you just want to go ahead and have the locks changed altogether? Do you want to change the code on the security alarm system? Do you want to move? There are some of us, me included, who may have moved for love and it didn't work out. Now, inevitably, I chose to stay in the city and just make a life for myself here. But some may not want to do that. Some may say, well, it didn't work and I was only here in this city for him or her. So I'm just going to go back home, or I'm just going to see where the next road leads me. So start preparing your next steps. And what will happen is you'll begin to gain momentum and excitement. And even though you may still grieve the relationship, you'll start to find yourself excited about what's to come.
Oh yeah, exactly. Exactly. I've moved for relationships before too. And I don't know if it's setting yourself up for failure, but I did it where I rented an apartment month to month and I rented furniture and everything. I didn't move my life. I just went because he wanted me to come. I thought, okay. But then, you have all the realities of that once you're there, in terms of what am I going to do for a living and where am I going to be and whatnot. And if you realize it doesn't work, as like in this particular instance I'm thinking of, it was nice to be able to remove myself back to square zero and not have lost that base. But if you've lost your home base and you have to start over, that can be a bit daunting for someone.
It was,
to get their legs back under them. But I feel like it's worth it. And like you said, planning it can be exciting. Planning it can make things really, it'll shift you out of the grieving state, into the, all right, what am I going to do next? I like that. So once someone's made a relationship change and they're looking at, a separation or a divorce. Oh my goodness, what is going on outside? I'm so sorry. I'm going to pause the video for a quick second. I'll be right back. Hold on. Okay. And we're back. Sorry about that. Decided to have some tree trimming or something. Okay, so once someone is going through a life change, let's say they've done a separation or they've got a divorce finalized. And I know from organizing, there's a lot that goes on there because you have things you need to separate. And like you were talking about where you're going to live, everybody's landing in their places, but you have to get your sense of yourself back, right? Because when you're in a relationship, you're a we and you've gone back to I. So how can someone regain their sense of themselves once they, are out of that relationship?
I think that's a really good question, specifically for women, because we tend to be the ones who are the nurturers. And as a result, we tend to adapt to whatever the guy is. We adapt to his life. We adapt to his world. And that's why it's a lot harder for us to let go, because we've made the mistake of putting our identity into the relationship. And once the relationship is over, it's like, okay, well, who am I? What do I do next? Where do I go? And so from the steps you can take from getting to the we mentality to the I mentality, and this is one of the things that I'm a very big advocate for, and I tell women to do this all the time, begin to spend time learning about you, learning about your likes and dislikes, relearning your likes and dislikes. There will be a chance that there are certain things in the relationship that you have grown accustomed to. And I'll just give like a crazy example. Prior to when I got married, I was the person who would take a shower and I just felt like the bath mat was meant for my wet feet. And so that's exactly what I would use it for.
All right.
But my now ex-husband, he would always let me take a shower first and would tell me that it drove him nuts to put his feet on a wet floor. And so I would start drying my feet before getting out of the shower. Well, fast forward, I haven't been with him in almost 12 years. And now I can't stand a wet bath mat. So, you know, you'll have little things like that that will rub off on you. But for the most part, we are who we are. Now we can expand, we can grow, but the core of who we are tends to not change, and we tend to forget what that core is for us. So spend some time getting to know you. You don't need to jump back into a new relationship. You don't need to jump back into the dating scene. You don't need to do any of those things, because what you're doing is trying to stay attached to the addiction of being a couple. You're wanting to go back to that because that's what you currently know and you're feeling unsure. Don't do that. Specifically, if you were cheated on, you don't need another man to validate you just because the one you loved was unfaithful. Just stay alone for a minute and enjoy your own company. Start to try new things. I tell all women, try one new thing. Doesn't matter what magnitude of seriousness or fun it is, just something that you wouldn't normally do. And what will tend to happen, even if you don't like that new thing, you've now opened yourself up to trying other new things, which in turn will allow you to meet new people, experience new mindsets, experience new perspectives. And the ultimate goal here is to walk into whatever your purpose is in this world. We were all created for something. If you're a wife, if you're a mother, that's great. I've been a wife. I hope to be one again. I'm still a mother now, and I love it. That is not the only thing we've been created to do, though.
Oh, yeah, no.
And one of the reasons that I'm an advocate for women finding out what were you created to do is because that will also set the trajectory of who you will give time to when you start dating again.
Right. Yeah, it's so true. If you find that you're very entrepreneurial and you want to start your own business, for example, my ex-husband was extremely corporate.
Mm-hmm.
He worked for the state and was very used to a routine job that did not have any stitch of entrepreneurialism and didn't understand my bent in that direction. And what I'm so blessed by now, you know, after a long gap in between relationships and finally meeting a person that is entrepreneurial because I was in that environment.
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing the difference that that's made, because he understands when I'm going to spend a day recording webcasts, or he, you know, it's not a structure. It's like, I kind of have to give him the rundown. This is what's happening. He does the same with me, but we're in that same mode. Was a huge, when they say money, it wasn't even money so much, but money issues, the way you make money, the way, you know, you interact with it and the way it comes to you. Was definitely a huge relationship hiccup for me. And I didn't realize how big of one it would be until now finding the sweet spot, and you go, oh, okay. Now I see what it's like to have that understanding of that part of the relationship and have that really work. So, yeah, it's huge. And then, you know, I like that. I really like what you're saying about going out and trying something new too.
Mm-hmm.
Just change it up, you know, because I feel like we do get really stuck in routines. I was saying to one of the speakers this morning, I found myself always buying the same groceries, like double the number that I actually needed once I was separated, because I had grocery grief, I call it, because I was like, I'm going to buy all these groceries and they go to waste. It was just like a routine and a habit. Change it up, you know, go to a different grocery store. That's what I ended up doing. I switched from like the big box store to like a little family grocery. It had a little specialty things, and it was so much fun because I would try different even foods that I never tried, and it was smaller, and I didn't feel like I needed to fill a cart. Right, I just got a small amount of things. Like I really had to make structural changes to even my routine.
And it's important to say that because what we don't realize is when we stay in the same mindset, we're going to end up meeting the same people.
Yeah,
And if you continue to meet the same people, you're going to have the same results. So you have to do, think, and try new to find the right relationship for you. It is so important to do that. Otherwise, you're just going to keep running into different iterations of the same relationship.
Yeah, so true. So true. And I made that mistake when I was younger. I would do a lot of the same. And it was like, really, and eventually I met someone in an entirely different way, and it really was a whole different ball game. But it's interesting. Yeah, it's like the definition of insanity, repeating the same thing over and over and expecting a different result.
Yes.
You're not going to get a different result. Mm-mm. So, highly unlikely anyway. So yeah, that changing things up is really key. And you meet people in grocery stores a lot. So the whole grocery grief thing, like, get over it and find a new place. You never know. You could meet over some cantaloupes or something. All right. So we were discussing a little bit about regaining that inspiration to be on your own. And, you fall out of the relationship and you're back in your own space. And how do you get to that place where you're comfortable being by yourself?
So I think this is one of those situations where the only way to go through it is to go through it. And so you have to go ahead and allow yourself to understand this is going to be different from my norm for the past 6 months, 9 months, 9 years. I was used to having someone. I was used to being a couple. I was used to not sleeping alone. I was used to knowing what I was going to do every weekend or every other weekend. And now that whole schedule is gone. And oftentimes, as you mentioned, your experience with rebound dating, and I've done the same in the past, we don't realize that we're just seeking a way to still have what we're used to. And we're trying to escape us. And so the best way that I can explain it is you have to get to a point where you're willing to allow this to become your new norm. You have to allow this to become your new norm. And you have to start by realizing that the relationship that you were in, you had a life before that. And at some point that relationship felt weird and unnew, or it felt new, it felt weird. It wasn't your norm.
Right,
The same way that became your new norm. If you will allow yourself the time alone, allow yourself to understand that even though what you had may be what you wanted and may be the greatest thing that you know about right now, you have no clue what's on the other side of you allowing yourself to get used to a new norm. There are still going to be benefits to you being single. We have to stop thinking about all of the benefits of being in a relationship like that's the only side that has plus and minuses. There are going to be plus and minuses over here. You will have the ability to come and go as you please. You will have the ability to get up and travel if you want. There will be a multitude of things that you're not thinking about right now that you'll be glad you're able to do as a single person. You just don't want to be single right now, and that's okay. But you have to allow yourself to get used to being single. And if you will just do that, come home, start watching TV, maybe start sleeping in the middle of the bed instead of your side. Just do all of these different things that remind you, hey, I have the benefit of sleeping in the whole bed. Oh, I can actually watch what I want to watch now. I don't have to record it. Oh, I can just buy food that I like. Oh, I can just get enough food for one. So now I'm saving money. You just look for all these various pluses. And in the beginning, you will have to dig for the pluses.
Yes, true that. Yeah, totally.
To find the pluses, but they are there. And as you gradually go through the process, you'll find yourself allowing this to become your new norm. And the significance of that is when it becomes your new norm, you're now no longer bound to the old relationship, so something new can come along.
And that's the key, is sort of like cutting those emotional and routine ties to that person and that situation, so that you're sort of like an open book at that point. You sort of like, clean slate, open book, and you're ready to do that. And if you don't give yourself the time for those things, because they say it takes 21 days to make a habit, and these kind of things probably a lot longer, but you have to sort of break that routine and move yourself into that open space.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, totally get that. So here's the thing I'm hearing a lot about now is quarantine, right? And relationship challenges from quarantine and people having to quarantine in the same place as somebody who maybe used to travel for work or who used to, not be home as often or maybe you were scared to just stay in your own apartment. So you guys moved in together. So you're sheltering in place together, but you didn't realize what that was going to be. So, what do you recommend for someone who's kind of been under the stress of that and trying to figure out, does this mean the relationship's dead, or not? Or how do they ascertain what to do next?
So this is just a crazy time for all of us.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone ever in our lifetime predicted that we would be going through something like this. And so the first thing is to be gentle with yourself and understand that you're going through something that not many people are alive to help pull us through. I know we had the Spanish flu back in 1918, but there's very few people who are still alive to tell us how to get through that. So this is new for everybody. So first off, be patient and gentle with yourself. Next, however, you have to be gentle and patient with your significant other.
Right?
That's
not so easy sometimes.
That's going to be the key, because let's use one of your examples. Let's say the person was used to traveling. Maybe they were used to not being in one place longer than a week before they came home for 2 days and got to go somewhere else. They're having to learn a new norm. Let's say that you are an introvert and one of the only things that allowed your relationship to go as long as it was that you had a lot of alone time and now you don't. These are going to be key things. I am a firm believer that nothing happens for no reason. I don't believe in coincidences. And so for some people, this sheltering in place is going to allow you guys to see one of two things: that you really can withstand the tough times together, and that you can learn to adapt and adjust, whether it be communication, whether it be deciding, you know what, when this is over, we might need to get a 2-bedroom just in case, so we have somewhere else to go. You may decide that this is teaching you how to adapt, but there are going to be some people who are going to end up sheltering in place and realizing, now that I'm spending 24/7 with you, this is not where I want to be. And as long as you've been gentle with yourself, and as long as you've allowed that same grace to the person that you're with, if you're still coming up to that conclusion, and if you talk to your partner, they tend to feel the same way, then that it's not going to feel good, but it is a good thing. It means that this sheltering in place has allowed both of you to not continue to waste each other's time, because it may have been years before you figured it out. You may have felt like everything was great, not realizing it was only great because you were only seeing each other 2 times a week.
Right.
So you only had 2 times a week. And so you had all of this time to be you, and they had this time to be them. And you only had to spend a couple of nights a week together. So it was doable. But now you understand, if we moved in together, if we got married, this is not going to work. And that is just as much of a blessing as the couples who realize, we can make this work. We should be looking for a place together now. So allow it to be what it is. Don't fight what it is, and know that whatever it turns out to be is what's best for you, even if it doesn't feel like what's best.
Right. And don't kick yourself if that's your discovery and it's something that you need to extract yourself from. At least you know now. Exactly. That's what I always try to say. At least I learned something, and at least I know now, and I'm not spending, even more time. Because maybe it's something that if you hadn't had that time in isolation together, you wouldn't have found out for a few years. Mm-hmm. And at least now the intensive time together had the benefit of showing you something.
Exactly.
Teaching you something.
Exactly.
It's going to be really key. So that's going to be really important. Well, how, in terms of the quarantine for you personally, how have you been weathering it? Have you found any little tips or tricks, things that have really worked for you in terms of the alone time? And
I think at the beginning, I was just like everyone else. It was, I felt a lot of anxiety. I didn't know that that's what it was, but I felt a lot of anxiety. And I slept a lot.
Yeah.
I slept a lot. My schedule was thrown off. Every day was feeling like the same day. I had to actually check the calendar to see what day it was.
Wasn't that weird? Yeah, that too.
Because literally everything felt the same. And, of course, scared to go outside, not sure what to do. As it's become a new norm, however, I'm finding that my sleeping schedule is back on point. I decided to get myself back on track by taking a very small dose of melatonin to get me back to the point where I'm sleeping through the night. Before, it would take forever for me to go to sleep, and then I was up every 90 minutes to 2 hours. So the melatonin is helping. I'm here with my son, and we fortunately have a really great relationship, which I'm told is weird when you have a son who's almost 14. So I guess
wow, that is fortunate. Yeah, that age to be stuck in the house alone. You are a lucky woman.
So, we still have a really good relationship. So I'm finding that I'm able to take this time to be in his world a little bit more, watch YouTube videos that he finds funny, look at reruns of old shows that he thinks are funny, listen to him still, game with his friends. I'm so thankful and fortunate that he has that so that he can, hang out with them, even though they can't hang out. And it's allowed me to just finally get to the point where I'm being creative about what I want. I was so focused on the rat race, just work and taking care of him and paying bills, that I had to put a lot of, my dreams and my rebranding for my business on hold. And now I've been forced to hunker down and say, okay, no, what do you want to do? Okay, let's get this blog started. Okay, let's get this podcast going. Okay, let's start doing what allows us to get to this point full time. And so it's given me the freedom to be a lot more creative. The benefit of not necessarily having to get up early in the morning is that I can pull a few late nights to get some things done. I've started a new degree program in marriage and family therapy. So,
good. Yeah.
There's a lot that I've been able to do. And so I would suggest to everyone else, allow yourself to go through the process in a way that's best for you. There are some people who are going to completely build new businesses coming out of this pandemic. There will also be some people who just end up saying they got through it, they didn't gain a lot of weight, and they still love their kids. So,
and that's huge.
So understand.
Some people would love to be in that position.
They would. So I think that what we should do is figure out, how can I best use this time for me? Knowing what I was doing before, how can I use this time in a way that's best for me? Was I going too fast? Was I not eating the right things? Was I procrastinating on finishing a chapter of my book? Whatever you were doing that was a result of a distraction, just focus on doing the opposite and see if that works.
Yeah, that's a really good point. In other words, just, be circumspect, really look at it and step into it. If you had resistance coming at you and you were really blocked, try to break through it while you have the time and opportunity, because it is a gift. I mean, calculus was invented during a pandemic. There's amazing things that come out of pandemics when people have time to actually sit and think about what that actually means. Absolutely. Whatever they're working on, they have breakthroughs. So I'm kind of optimistic. I'm one of those people like, what interesting things are going to come out of this now, in 6 months to a year, that we're going to be like, wow, that's mind blowing, because someone had the time. They had the time to assimilate all the other things they'd learned into something brand new.
Right.
So I hope so. I hope that's what we're seeing. And I hope that our advice today, especially your points about relationships, really, really hit home with some of our audience, and that they can really take some of these things to heart as they're processing during this time, because there's a lot of tumultuous change going on. So I'm really hoping that this serves well. So if you want to get a hold of Allison, below this video, you'll see there'll be a link to her website, Allison Denise. And you can book her on there for speaking engagements and things like that, so she will be available. So if you would like to, or if you want to reach out for any relationship, obviously, advice or counsel, as you can see, she's a very grounded individual with lots of good ideas. So I'm sure she can support you and as you work through a process of determining your next steps. So thank you so much for attending today, and for Allison for being with us. It's really appreciated. Thanks for your patience with our technology today, which was really fighting us, but we got it, man. We got it. And everyone, please tune in for our 21 days. This is a 21-day event, so there's lots and lots of interesting speakers about life change and how you come out the other side and thrive. We'll look forward to seeing you soon.